Hello and welcome to February's feature of the month. Today we're talking about health checks and how they can help keep your critical infrastructure up and running. So without further ado, let's get to it. What is a health check? A health check is a service that's offered by our BlueCat Premier and Enterprise Support programs. It ensures that your BlueCat environment is operating at peak performance and providing the reliability that you need. As you know, if BlueCat isn't performing well, odds are the rest of your network isn't performing well either. So the health checks are an excellent way to make sure that best practices are being applied and that you're getting the performance that you need out of your BlueCat. For this video, we're going to review an example health check and go over what's included in the document and how it can be beneficial to your organization. The first part of a health check is the table of contents. This includes the BAM health review, the BAM data rake review, and the BDDS data rake review. So in the BAM health review, we go over the BAM metrics. This includes the user counts, which consists of active users, inactive users, and the total number of users on the system. In this case, there are 21 inactive users, which means they haven't logged in for the last 6 months. These accounts should be reviewed to see if they still need to be on the system or whether they should be removed. The next is database statistics. Here we look at the different table sizes and the types of transactions. In this example, we can see that 3.74 gig is the database size, which is within acceptable limits, and a large number of the transactions that are done in the BAM are dynamic in nature, which usually is DHCP, DDNS updates, things like that. The transactions by users is actual systems administrators going in and making a transaction. The next page shows the entity details. These are the types of records and objects that are stored in the address manager. As you can see, it consists of DHCP, DNS, different server roles, things like that. In this case, the entity numbers are acceptable, but the MAC addresses, which is the first column, is a bit high and should be reviewed to determine if the MAC cleaning script should be run to reduce the account. We can also see the breakout of DNS and DHCP roles in our environment. In this case, 3 servers have DNS and DHCP roles. 2 of them are strictly DNS, and the other DNS server roles consist of a mix of AWS, GCP, and Azure DNS servers. Reviewing the types of BlueCat and other DNS roles can help identify whether there's optimizations and role deployments that can be performed, and this is usually subjective to a customer's environment, so there's no right or wrong. It's really sparks a conversation that can make sure that the configuration is correct. We also reviewed the deployment failures. In this case, there were no deployment failures in the last 3 months of DNS, DHCP, or other types of errors. So now we get into the actual BAM review. And in this case, we're going to start by looking at the system health, which it consists of the top command. So we grab this from the data rake, and as you can see, the system's been up for 52 days. The memory is kind of low. It's only has 183 meg free, but it's using 2.5 gig in buffer. But the CPU is not being taxed at this time. Since the BAM only has 6 gig, we recommend that the VM should be increased to conform to the specs for this BAM model. And while swap memory is being used, it's only being slightly used, so it's not a concern at this time. We review the network interfaces on the address manager, and in this case, there are no drop packets or anything else of a concern at this time. We review the patch levels, which in this case, the BAM is patched to the latest release. And we do see some errors in the error log. In this case, it's an SSO configuration error that could be a configuration on the SSO provider or on the BAM, and that should be investigated further. In the P&A file analysis, this is where we can look if notifications are not being processed in a timely manner. There's only one file that exists, so that's not a concern on this BAM. Now that we reviewed the BAM, we're now going to move on to a BDDS. And again, we take the same format here. We review the top screen of the BDDS. And as you can see, this BDDS has 3.8 gigs of RAM, has 1.4 gig free, and has 1.3 in buffer. So the memory usage is fairly acceptable here. The uptime is 9 days. Looking at this top screen, I don't see any concerns here that would imply that the system is being overtaxed. We review the network interfaces. Again, there's no drops, overruns, or frame errors on the send and receive, so it doesn't appear that there's any concerns here, and the BDDS has had the latest patches applied. Moving on to the error log, we do see a system that's trying to do DNS updates directly to the BAM, so this should be investigated to determine, is this a system that should be refused, or is it need to be configured to allow that system to update? And in the log analysis, in the syslog, we see that there's a synchronization issue between the clocks on this server and its DHCP failover pair, so that should definitely be investigated. And looking at the RNDC stats, we don't see any things of concern here. We're not hitting the recursive clients watermarks. We're not hitting the TCP clients watermarks, so we don't appear to be overtaxing this server. An analysis of the system logs didn't show any refused or errors in DNS operation, and given that, there's no concerns there. And so now we have the conclusion. Overall, the example DDI infrastructure is operating acceptably and within performance levels. Several issues were identified that should be corrected to prevent an outage. One, there's a large number of MAC addresses that could indicate MAC address issues, orphan MAC address issues. This can cause the database performance if they become too numerous, and so we have a script that can help clean those out. The BAM error log indicated that there could be an SSO configuration issue. This could be preventing users who should be able to log in from logging in, and so this could be caused by a misconfigured SSO provider or the SSO groups not being created on the BAM. And finally, for the BDDS, it's reporting a client is attempting to update its own address but is being denied. This could be expected behavior, or it could be a misconfigured client not being able, that is attempting to update its own address. The syslog had an error related to time synchronization, which could be impacting the failover configuration. In the event of an outage where we did have to fail over, an incomplete sync would be an issue, and so we should schedule a time to look at the NTP configurations on these failover pairs to make sure it's within the organizational standards and that time is properly synced. So with these issues, your support team will open child cases to the health check case so that these issues can be tracked as they're addressed. And so that's an overall health check that shows the overall health of your BAM, your BDDS, and your database metrics to ensure that your system is operating properly. I hope this video has showed why health checks are an important offering of our enterprise and premier support programs. Conducting health checks on a regular basis can catch issues before they become outages and help ensure the reliability of your critical network infrastructure. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next month.